In this lesson, we'll talk about the various techniques for deploying your SSIS packages. There are a few techniques to keep in mind. One of those techniques is the package installation wizard. This is an installation wizard that will be generated from inside bids. The other technique is actually deploying the packages from the bids. That's where you open up your package and you say File, Save a Copy As. An additional technique is using Management Studio. In this technique, you can right-click on the folder you want to deploy to and select Import. The last one is D2Util. With D2Util, you develop a batch file of some sort to deploy your packages. There are other techniques as well that are like third-party techniques. One such one is a tool called BI Express from PragmaticWorks. There are two places you can deploy your packages to, the file system or the MSDB database. And each have their pros and cons. This chart here gives you a pros and cons of each of those, as well as it's described in the book as well. If you deploy to the file system, it's the same as copying the packages to a given folder. If you deploy the MSDB database, you're essentially uploading those packages to the MSDB database on your SQL server. If, from a security perspective, if you upload the packages to your file system, you have to put passwords on each package to prevent the wrong user from executing that package. You also may want to lock it down with Active Directory security. From an MSDB perspective, from the security perspective, if you can have package roles. Now, package roles were discussed in later lesson on securing the packages. With those package roles, you can lock down a package to where a user can either execute a package or update the package. From a backup and recovery perspective, from a file system, all you have to do is tell your tape guy to restore a given file. From a backup recovery of the MSDB database, you'll have to set up your maintenance plans to back up the MSDB database, but there's no way of recovering an individual package. From a deployment perspective, it's as easy as copying the files up onto the file system for deployment. For the MSDB database, you have to use a tool like the third-party components or package installation wizard or those other components we mentioned as well. But it's a little tougher than just copying and pasting. From troubleshooting, if you have bids installed on the server, you can open up that package. Now, this is recommended, but you can open up that package and begin troubleshooting on the production server and figure out why those packages are failing. From MSDB, you'll need to export that package out of the MSDB database to troubleshoot. Also, the execution speed is exactly the same. So no matter where you deploy to, you'll notice your execution speed being exactly the same. With that now said, let's go ahead and try it. In this lesson, you'll want to create a manifest file from the project we've been using throughout this book and deploy those packages to the MSDB database. To create a manifest file, right-click on the project file inside of your bids environment and select Properties. Now keep in mind, this is not the Properties window that you see here, but it says a New Properties window, so make sure you right-click on the project and say Properties. Next, go to the Deployment Utility and change the Create Deployment Utility to True. It will be set to False by default. This Allow Configuration Changes, additionally, will show you how to, it will allow an administrator to change the configurations of the packages during deployment as well. Also, it's going to create the deployment field utility underneath your project folder in bin deployment. After I do that, go to Build and build your project. You'll see all the packages will then open up. It may take some time. You'll know it succeeded by the Build Succeeded option right there. With that said, let me go to my project folder. So I'm going to go there by selecting my project folder right here. Then go into my file path right here in my Properties window. And I'll just go take my project name out. And here we go. So this is my project folder. I'll go to Bin, Deployment, and here you'll see the manifest file. So you can actually open this up in Notepad or anything like that, or Internet Explorer to see it's basically an XML file. But if I double click on that, it will open up the package installation wizard. I'll hit Next, and it's going to ask me if I'm going to deploy to the file system or the MSDB database. I'll select the MSDB database. You can also choose to validate each package after installation. By doing that, it'll make sure the schema is there, all the files are there, and everything that package needs is actually there to run. But it does this after the deployment. Next, I'll select the server I want to deploy to, and any folder that I may want to do. Now I've already created a folder called Personal Trainer earlier in Management Studio. You could do this too if you wanted to in Management Studio by right-clicking on the MSDB and selecting New Folder. You don't have to do that though if you don't want to successfully fulfill this module. So in my case, I've got this Personal Trainer folder which is empty. I'll select it, and I'm also going to tell it to rely on the server to encrypt for encryption. This is going to set the protection level property to server storage. After I click Next, it'll confirm that my configuration files and any other dependencies will be stored on this folder on my SQL Server. You can browse to a new folder if you like as well. Ideally, you want to run this installation wizard from the server. Click Next again, and Next again. This will now deploy your packages. My packages are now deployed, and I'll hit Finish. Additionally, if you had any kind of configuration files, it would prompt you at that point for how do you want to configure those. I can now refresh this, and notice I have a list of packages now on the server. Another way I could deploy these packages by right-clicking and selecting Import Package. Another way would have been by going into File, Save Copy As, and point to which SQL Server I want to deploy to. A final way are third-party components. In this case, I've got a third-party component called BI Express installed, which will allow me to deploy packages easily this way as well. And a final way is through a DOS command using dtutil.exe. In this lesson, I showed you a number of ways to deploy your packages. One such way was a package installation wizard. The package installation wizard is an easy way to create a deployment manifest file, which you then can run and deploy your packages all at once. dtutil.exe is a command line program that will enable you to create a batch file for those packages. And also, I showed you Management Studio and BIDS environment. There are also many third-party components that you can download as well to deploy packages. You can deploy to two environments, the MSDB database or the file system. Each of those environments have their pros and cons of where you want to deploy to. Now that you know a little bit about how to deploy your packages to the SSIS store, let's talk about how to configure the SSIS service.